right, boys. You done seen the rest? Now I'm gonna show you the best. Ma Rainey's gonna show you her black bottom.
Way down south in Alabama.
The buzzer sounds. Irvin goes to the door. There is a flurry of commotion as Ma Rainey enters, followed closely by the policeman, Dusty May, and Sylvester. Ma Rainey is a short, heavy woman. She is dressed in a full-length fur coat with matching hat, an emerald green dress, and several strands of pearls of varying lengths. Her hair is secured by a headband that matches her dress. Her manner is simple and direct, and she carries herself in a royal fashion.
When I got there, they began to say, I want to see that dance they call the black bottom. I want to learn that dance. Want to see that dance they call your big black bottom. It'll put you in a trance. All the boys in the neighborhood, they say, your black bottom is really good. Come on and show me your black bottom. I want to learn that dance.
Hello, and welcome back to the Lit to Lens podcast, a safe place for folks who like the book better than the movie. We are recording this on Monday, February 8th, 2021. Today we are discussing Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, streaming currently on Netflix. With me today to talk about the adaptation is the Black Bottom dancing, Jelly Roll lovin', and the faulty mic using Mr. Eric. Say hello to the people, E.
Hello, people. And also that faulty mic, that was once.
That was one time.
Yeah, but it was really faulty.
It was super faulty. It didn't pick up your voice at all. But also with Sylvester's mic in the film today.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
figured.
it's a double, yeah. It has a double meaning.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm bad at using mics. Sylvester had his mic sabotaged by someone? Levy? Who knows?
Your mic also might have been sabotaged.
Probably by Levy.
Levy.
I keep wanting to call him
I think
Levy.
it's
yeah, Levy.
It's Levy, yeah.
Like drive your Chevy to the levee.
Oh, God.
There you go. That's how I remember it. That's how I'm going to remember it now.
So, how are you?
I'm good.
Good.
I'm good.
Okay.
I still think it's 2020. I don't know. When you said like April 8th, 2021, I was like, that's not right. It's 2020.
You know how when you're writing stuff, like, and you start like a journal or whatever, like you write the beginning of the year, it's harder to get 2021 down. I'm still having trouble with that.
Yeah. I don't think that's going to change until much later this year.
Like 2030.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because everyone keeps talking about 2020 and it's just like, it's a forever year.
It is a forever year. That's a good way to describe it. So we are recording this on a Monday night, and we recorded our most recent episode, which was the preseason episode for our upcoming season, which we are starting today.
Oscar bait.
Yeah, 2021 Oscar bait. And I wanted to say that I almost killed myself slipping on the ice on my way that time we recorded, as well as tonight. I had to walk in the middle of the street again.
Yeah.
The ice is still there.
It is going to be a recurring theme. I think all of this week, the highs are in like the low 30s.
Yeah.
Maybe even high 20s. And if it does snow more, there's going to be more ice and there's going to be less shoveling. And it's going to be a problem forever, I think.
This hobby is becoming a hazard.
Bring me back to 2020. Things were safer. Things were safer then.
That's true, they were. So before we get into the adaptation a little bit, we're going to talk about some fast facts play in the movie. So the play was written by August Wilson, debuted on Broadway's Cort Theatre in 1984, received a Tony Award nomination for Best Play, and it has a Goodreads rating of 3.96. The movie released to select theaters in November 2020 and then streaming to Netflix in December 2020, directed by George C. Wolfe. Screenplay was written by Ruben Santiago-Hudson, and it stars Viola Davis, Chadwick, Boseman. Rotten Tomatoes 98%, Metacritic 87%, so pretty good.
Yeah, I think I need to clean this up. I think in our last episode I said this was written by Kemp Powers, the guy that did Soul, and I meant One Night in Miami. I can't remember if I did that right, but obviously it wasn't. He did not.
It's a stat correction.
Yeah, it's a stat correction.
Yeah, we gotta get that in there.
I also think it's interesting that this has a Goodreads rating, like people.
Yeah.
Just like reading plays, marking them down there, Goodreads.
Yep.
You did it, I did it.
Yep.
But I just think it's funny that the general public is like, I need to rate this on Goodreads.
Yeah, like after they read it. Yeah, so I looked at it today. I think it has like 2,000 or 2,500, which is like more than I thought, actually.
Yeah, that's not a small amount.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not Harry Potter amount, but.
Yeah. I think also when going forward, whenever we say Netflix, we need to have the da-dum
Oh,
behind it.
Yeah. I can throw that in there.
Or we just play a drinking game, or if we talk about Netflix, and everyone has to drink.
Okay. You hear that, listeners? You have to drink.
So
Every time we say Netflix. So, can we get a little recap, Eric?
yeah, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom tells the story of a long, hard recording session for Ma and the 4 members of her band at a White-run studio in Chicago in 1927.
Yep.
Issues of race, religion, death, and the appropriate reaction when someone steps on your shoe are discussed.
That is very true.
That's Ma Rainey's Black Bottom.
You can't step on people's shoes.
No. I think if it happens twice, then you are legally allowed to take recourse.
Yes, of course.
So that's it. That's a short recap, but I think within it, like, this is a play, obviously, and they are long blocks of dialogue and conversation. So plot is sort of second, and talking is first.
Yep.
Right. So even if that seems thin, it's like really, it's an hour and a half.
Yeah, I mean, it was an hour-and-a-half movie. It was a 95-page play with 2 acts. So
yeah,
fair enough.
Yeah,
I give you a break for having a short synopsis. That's all right.
Yeah, I'm trying to move us all along, much like August Wilson writing this play so tightly.
Yeah, that's true.
He's like, get on with it. Let's record already.
That's
what I'm saying. Let's record. I'm like Ma Rainey, and you're like Levy.
I'm trying to do my own thing.
Levy. Gosh.
Yeah, Levy. It's Levy.
Anyways,
so 2 truths, 1 lie. Are you ready? Do you know how it works?
Yes.
Do you know how this works? Okay.
3 statements. 2 of them are truths. 1 of them will be a lie. Although last time that wasn't true. So
I'm gonna do my best to not fuck it up this time.
Okay.
Ready. Number 1, Chadwick Boseman attended Howard University in Washington, D.C. Number 2, Viola Davis's character appears on screen for less than 27 minutes of runtime. Number 3, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom did not appear on Barack Obama's favorite films and TV shows of 2020. You know, he has his recaps, like favorite songs, favorite whatever.
Yeah. He's a pop culture tastemaker in some ways, I suppose.
Yeah, I would say that.
His year-end list is pretty popular usually.
Yeah.
And is good for like authors, right? If
yes, definitely.
they get on that list in there. He needs a book club, is what we're saying. Like Oprah or Reese. The Barack book club.
Also, as well as a watch club.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Barack Obama, welcome. You're welcome anytime to the Little Ones podcast. So I know for a fact that Chadwick Boseman did attend Howard University.
Okay.
So I'm going to keep that one as a truth.
Mm-hmm.
Viola Davis' character appears on screen for less than 27 minutes. She's really not in the movie all that much, but the movie itself is only 90 minutes. So a third of the screen time could be true.
Less than a third.
And then Ma Rainey's Black Bottom did not appear on his list. I find that hard to believe since this is like an Oscar frontrunner. I feel like people would be talking about that more, and maybe they are, and I'm just not in those conversations. That kind of stinks. So I'm gonna say the Barack Obama did put this on his favorite films and TV shows of 2020. Final answer.
You're correct.
Yes,
that's right.
Great.
God
Probably
damn.
number 1 on his list.
Might have been. I didn't look at the actual top 10, but he did put it on his list.
I don't think he ranks
favorites.
them. I think he just puts them alphabetically.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
And then
you can't rank art, Will.
That's true.
Even though we're doing an Oscar bait season when that's literally what we're going to be doing at the end, but that's okay.
Winners and stuff.
Yeah,
that's all right. We're doing our thing.
We all fail. We all fall on the sword sometimes.
Well,
we all compromise our morals
for yourself.
sometimes.
And then, so yeah, Viola Davis's character did appear on screen for less than 27 minutes. So this is like such. Well, we'll talk about it when the Oscars comes up. But it's like the opposite of her Fences performance.
Oh,
right?
like she's supporting, but she's going to be lead.
Yeah.
Well, Will, her name is in the fucking title, so is that a lead enough for you?
No, it's not.
Okay.
Well, it wasn't the same argument can be had for like Hannibal, right? He was on screen for less than like 15 minutes or something.
That's not called Hannibal though. That's called something else.
Yeah. Oh my god, what is it called? But he won Best Actor for that. So it's all just fucking nonsense. That's
that called?
That's the point I'm trying to make.
We just watched the Super Bowl last night.
Clarice was the Silence of the Lambs.
Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's a Little Lens joint as well.
It is. Thomas Harris, the writer.
Oh.
Same,
shout out.
Yeah.
Thomas Harris.
Yeah. Went to high school with Thomas Harris.
Oh my god. All right, we're gonna take a quick break and we'll be right back. Shout out Thomas Harris.
If you like what you're hearing, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It'll help us find more fine listeners like you.
And we're back. Thank you from that brief word from Eric. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
So congratulations on winning Two Truths, One Lie.
Not really surprising.
I'm not really happy for you, but
That's okay.
we're gonna get into the play that we read over the weekend. And,
before we do that, I'm gonna
uh-huh.
talking about Two Truths, One Lie. We were reading like horoscope stuff yesterday, and
of course,
um,
what are you?
Mary, my wife, was like, "I'm a Gemini,"
Oh, that's
and
right.
so she was looking up horoscope stuff, and she said Geminis are likely to just tell you random trivia nuggets, just like in random conversation. And I was like, "Shit."
That is so fucking you.
Yeah.
What did it say about Pisces? Actually, I don't want to know.
Yeah,
Don't
that
tell
they
me.
can't be trusted.
That's probably true too.
So anyway, I thought that was funny.
That is funny. That is you.
Yeah.
It's funny how those things are kind of accurate.
Yeah.
They're probably accurate like 50% of the time.
There's a little confirmation bias
Yeah.
in it as well, but
Yeah.
that one was really right. It
That's really good.
was like half of my conversations are me just explaining things.
Every time you bring up a trivia fact, then I'm just gonna call you a Gemini.
Classic Gemini
Yeah.
move. Yeah.
Moving on from the Gemini, we're gonna talk about the play that we read. It was 95 pages, written by August Wilson, available on Kindle and other outlets, probably in paperback too somewhere.
Yeah.
Barnes and Noble and stuff. But did you like it?
I did like it. I am out of season like reading plays. I don't know how you are. I feel like the last play I read was Fences, probably.
Yeah, I think so. Me too.
And for me, like just generally, I think it takes a little bit more effort to get through a play because when I'm confronted with something so dialogue heavy, I tend to like read it faster and read it less closely because it's just like words, and I feel like I just scream right past the words.
Yeah.
So I feel like it really took a second read for me to grasp more of it. And the one I saw, I mean, mine was 45, not 95, but maybe it was just because like the edges were wider and they fit more words.
Damn,
on the
really?
page.
Yours was 45 pages?
Yeah, I mean, it still took me a while to read.
I guess maybe, yeah. That's a significant amount, though.
Yeah, I think
Of a
maybe just the
difference.
margins were really wide. and
Yeah,
so-
maybe. I have a really small Kindle,
Yeah,
but
so maybe that's
anyways,
why.
Yeah.
But I mean, what I really liked on the second read, I was really trying to figure out like how to write a play. And the first thing I took note of was how all the main characters, the main players, are described based on how they play music. I don't know if you picked up on this. So like Cutler is described as playing is solid and almost totally unblemished, slow drag, innate African rhythms underlie everything he plays, and he plays with an ease that is at times starting. Toledo, in control of his instrument, he understands and recognizes that its limitations are an extension of himself. Levy, he plays wrong notes frequently, and he often gets his skill and talent confused with each other. So it's like their music playing styles are also their personalities in a
Yeah.
certain sense.
Yeah.
And I thought that was kind of a cool way to save a bunch of space and show that your musical style as a blues performer, as a jazz performer, is tied to your personality.
Yeah. I did not catch that. That's pretty clever from August. They must have said that at the beginning, right? Towards the beginning
The play.
of the play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I first noticed it when they introduced Irv and Mel, the two only white people in the story,
Yep.
who work for the studio. They're described like almost only in their relation to like black people and how they view black people. So like Irv is, I didn't write it down, but he's described as being like friendly and like will work with them, whereas Mel is like
Standoffish. And,
and he just wants them to like do their work and get out
So
basically.
he can get. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and I was like, well, that's a kind of an interesting way. He doesn't say like their age or what they look like. He's just like, here's how this person feels about black
Yeah.
people.
Right.
Here's how this one does. I was like, I wonder how he describes the actual black characters. And he describes them like in huge paragraphs, but I thought it was kind of interesting that he described them with their musical style.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably that's probably been said in the past, like about musicians, how their instrument is sort of like an extension of their personality or of their person, whatever.
Yeah.
The way that they play. And I was going to mention that Levy is probably better suited as like a jazz player, somebody who's more
Improvisational.
Yes.
Who's allowed to be wild.
yes, as opposed to like in a recording studio where you have to do it to the T.
Yeah. Well, he wants his own band, right? And I think that's he doesn't fit well in a box. He's very ambitious and needs to continue to move on, and he can't just be like a session musician.
No, he can't sit still.
Yeah.
So.
But I thought that was interesting. So that was the first thing I flagged. Secondly, I just think the dialogue is really good.
Yeah, I mean, yes,
It's really,
very
really
much.
good.
Yeah.
I wrote down a ton of lines. I'm not going to repeat them here, but read the play and you'll see.
You'll see why. Yeah.
I really like Toledo as a person. Like
Mhm.
obviously, Levy is the big breakout here. I think it's kind of Levy's story in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought some of Toledo's like wisdom was great.
Yeah, I mean, he was kind of like the old guy, and he kind of spoke in more like general terms and more like societal terms, talking about how, you know, black folks are always trying to like have fun and like that there's more to life than just having fun and stuff like that. He's talking more of like a wise old man as opposed to like Levy and everybody else who's just trying to have a good time and play music and
No good timing.
no good timing.
Good timing does nothing good for anybody.
That's true.
And then I thought that this was just really well paced for being a play set in two places that takes place over two scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was zero fat. I thought everything
Yeah.
served a purpose. Every character served a purpose. Every action served a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was no fat.
What about the car crash?
Well, let's talk about that later. But that's the movie version. Because they showed the car crash in the movie, but they don't show it in the play.
But what's the point of the car crash in the play?
Well, I think it underscores the societal like view of a black person.
How she's like immediately
Like in the recording studio, she's famous, but on the street,
mm,
she's just another black person who they don't believe that she owns her car. She can't
Right.
hail a cab.
mm-hmm.
She's not trusted by the cop.
Yeah.
Right. Like
Right.
he's blaming things on her that she said she didn't do.
Yeah, and we'll get into that point, I guess, later when we talk about the movie. But that is when she's walking through the hotel and stuff. Is sort
Yeah.
of like a contradiction to that perspective, whereas she is known outside of the studio. Or is it more about them being racist and looking at her like, why is she in this hotel? Or
Let's talk about it. I have an
Yeah.
opinion on that.
okay,
Um,
table that.
but what about you? I talked a lot in this section, so I liked it.
Yeah, I like. Thank you. I liked it a lot too. It was the dialogue was really, really good. Like you really got a sense of these characters, how they talked. The dialect was like you're basically just put right there. Put in the time frame, put in the setting. Like I don't know how else to describe it, but you really got a sense of like who they were and you know where they're from and stuff. So I really enjoyed it, and it was very fast paced, which was good for me. And yeah, there were parts where I thought I was reading it too quickly, and like, okay, I need to like back up, like what exactly happened here. That happened to me during Levy's monologue. We're talking about his father and his mother.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I mean, it was really enjoyable, and I loved reading Levy, and I loved reading Ma Rainey. I found them irritating a lot of the time, but it was more of like, you know, I think you found out later on why they were that way as you read on. So you gain some empathy towards them, but I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I think it's interesting you bring up that like you learn more about them as you go, because it does kind of start very fast when they're like these four guys are just thrown together
Mm-hmm.
into this room to practice for the eventual recording session.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't really like, they know each other, but you don't really know them. So they're like, everybody's trying to feel each other out in a certain way. Like you can tell they actually don't really know each other as well as their like station might suggest, like as bandmates.
Mm-hmm. But you can tell they kind of get along with each other. They're kind of giving each other shit and like kind of, you know, there's a lot of back and forth between everyone. There's lots of conversation, obviously, but
Yeah. It felt friendlier in the movie than it did in the play. Like in the play,
really?
I thought it was kind of harsh. And then I saw them do it in the movie version. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
no, this is just like good
banter.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
just good banter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, very good. I mean, it was very enjoyable read. I'm not one to really read plays.
Well, we got two more. Oh God. So.
But no, I'm excited for those. But yeah, this was really, really good. So let's get into some of the key themes that August Wilson brings to the readers here in this book. And the first one you have listed, probably not surprisingly, but very importantly, race.
Yeah, this one is obvious. I think if you've listened to the recap and listened to what we were just talking about, I mean, it's 5 black entertainers performing for 2 white studio executives who are going to take the recording and like send it out to the world. So, I mean, it's very obvious. Like the whole dynamic is just that they're at the behest of these white suits.
Yep.
Right. I think there are several moments of tension outside of that, like with the car accident, most notably. And the movie like introduces even more, and we'll talk about those later. But I think it's very clear in the book that whether you are white or whether you are black really determines what you are allowed to do and what you're allowed to say to certain people.
Yeah, and sort of how you're sort of indirectly treated or directly treated. There are certainly moments in the play where you get the sense that the tertiary white characters that are not necessarily mentioned, maybe like the drivers and stuff that for the car crash, where you get a sense of like racial tension towards the black characters. So it's sort of like an air sort of around the setting of the story, as well as sort of a direct pinning between the music executives, like you talk about, and the musicians.
Yeah,
I really thought. I don't know if this was mentioned in the play, but how the stage was set, where the white executives were up higher than the musicians. Do you remember that in the play? Was that described?
I don't remember.
Okay. Well, we don't table that, but I thought that was an interesting dynamic between the race relations as well.
Yeah. I just sort of remember it as like 2 rooms, and when the action was taking place, they'd flip the lights on.
Yeah.
And then when someone would leave, they would flip the lights off and like flip the lights on in the other room.
Right.
Which I thought was kind of...
That'd be a cool to see it as a play.
Yeah.
But certainly, yeah, race relations. Certainly, I wouldn't say it's super direct in the dialogue. Necessarily, it's more indirect in the way that they talk, the way things are stated.
Like about race and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, the white executives don't say anything necessarily directly racist. It's more like indirect racism, I guess.
Yeah, and there's one to talk about coming up, so we can table that for that too.
Yeah. So do you want to move to religion?
Yeah, that's another one. I think this one is more overt in the dialogue, right? Like Levy compares himself to the archangel Gabriel, who plays the trumpet, which I think also comes up in Fences that we read. So there's a little through line.
Yeah.
A lot of these guys in here, like Cutler, is deeply religious. He has an anecdote about a reverend who has a bit of trouble on a railroad coming up from Tallahassee.
Yeah.
Slow Drag, his wife becomes religious and leaves him because he's not pious enough for her. And then Levy is just like deeply questioning, to the point where he is like welcoming the devil into his life because God has sort of left him behind. And his blasphemy like causes Cutler to punch him in the face.
Yeah.
So I think there's, in this story, God and religion plays a pretty large role in characters questioning like their lot and station in life, whether for ill, like Levy in his past life, he thinks God has sort of abandoned him, or it's just like God's plan in a certain way, and this is what you do, this is how you follow.
Yeah, he's quoted as saying that God has basically thrown black people's prayers in the trash, and how he's totally abandoned their race, whereas Cutler is a deeply religious man, like you said, and Toledo is not necessarily super religious, but you mentioned his wife who left him because she started going to church and started comparing Toledo, her husband, to the men from the church who were more religious, and then basically started looking down on Toledo and left him. But Slow Drag, he mentions the devil, right? The man who sold his soul to the devil.
Oh, that's right. His anecdote. Yeah. And he like carried it around in a little bag.
Yeah.
Yeah, and would like do weird things and would get out of trouble.
Yeah.
Would pass out money to people to like recruit them to be in his little devil worshipping gang.
Yeah, right. I don't think we got Ma Rainey's perspective on religion. We certainly didn't get it from the music executives.
Yeah, I think it's just the four.
Yeah, it's just
the four guys.
Yeah, the four. Yeah. So that certainly played a role in a lot of the tension between the musicians later on in the story, but also money.
Yeah, and I think this even calls to that. Like you were just talking about Levy wanting to sell his soul to the devil. Maybe I said that. I don't remember.
Yeah,
but like he's actively looking to sell his soul to the devil, and in a certain sense, like that's the role that money plays here, which is like the dynamic between entertainer and studio executive is one based in money.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, you can perform, but I'm the one that controls what gets pressed into this like wax vinyl record, what gets sent out, if you're popular or not. Sure, you can play all these tent shows in the South and you'll have a great audience, but if you want to make it to Harlem, if you want to make it to Chicago, if you want to make it to these big northern cities, I'm sort of the gatekeeper because I control the financial ways that music moves.
You have to play what I think will be good and for those markets. And if you don't do that, I'm not going to pay you.
Yeah, it is interesting because I think probably in Viola Davis's sizzle reel for Best Actress, they'll probably show the scene where she talks about the blues. And to her, the blues is sort of this like singing about a condition of being alive. And it's not always good. It's not always loud. It's not always like, you don't always dance to it, right? It's just sort of, it is what it is. It helps you get out of bed.
Right.
But it's not always going to be happy. Whereas like the white executives are like, I need some blues music that is going to make kids dance. And it's like, well, that's not really blues music.
Right.
So in the pursuit of money, they're sort of bastardizing what they either think they're trying to do, which is like create a new popular artist that they can sell, or I don't know. Like the pursuit of money for especially the white folks causes them to bastardize the music that they are producing. But the pursuit of money for it sort of does the same thing for like someone like Levy, who's willing to sell his songs, in the hopes that he can make it big as well.
Yeah, well, he's more selfish in that regard, but I think the music executives are not really interested in the art or what it necessarily represents for the artist. More about, will this record play? Yeah. They're only interested in the stats and
they want to make it big in Harlem, man.
That's true. Hey, man.
I think they say that like twice.
Yeah. Harlem's a big market,
Yeah.
They want to feel happy. They want to forget their troubles.
Yeah.
So.
But also, like, obviously all these guys are doing what they're doing for money specifically.
Yeah.
And Levy, there is a big plot point, buys these $11 pair of like nice shoes.
Yeah.
Which is like a week's, maybe more wages, I think they say at some point.
Yeah, it's certainly not cheap for.
So yeah, it's sort of like are you living above your raisin in a certain sense? Like,
yeah. And this ties into his ambition.
Yeah. Talk to me about that.
So he is clearly ambitious. He, like you just mentioned, he's kind of living above his pay grade, and he's certainly wants the nicer things in life and has these grand ambitions of becoming his own artist, forming his own band. I forget what they call themselves, like the Leg Stompers.
Levy Green and maybe it is Leg Stompers.
Something like that. But he has big ambitions of, having his own band and making it big and, making songs and making it on the radio and being kind of like Ma Rainey, but for the Harlem audience. He wants to make hit records and not necessarily be like an artist like Ma Rainey is probably more interested in being. And that ambition certainly causes a lot of tension between like all of the characters, because he doesn't really want to listen to what they have to say, even though the songs are for Ma Rainey, right? They are her songs. He's trying to push his own like twist and his own blueprint and his own fingerprint on the songs that are currently already written for Ma Rainey. So we can kind of get his name out there. And I think they did that interestingly in the movie, in one of the opening scenes, but we can get into that later. But I thought ambition can be two different things. Ambition can be about, how successful you want to be in life, or how like like happy you want to be. And I think Ma Rainey's is more about being happy, but also about being like true to her music. And she's incredibly ambitious about not making records to sell them to certain markets, and solely to do that for solely to make music that represents her perspective or her type of musicality.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I would add that with his ambition, he lacks patience.
Mm-hmm.
And without that, it sort of separates him from what Ma Rainey is trying to do. Like, Ma Rainey obviously is a band leader, and she's making money and doing things with her life. And he aspires to that. But in his pursuit of it, he sort of disregards some of the like railings that Ma Rainey puts on some of her conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Ma Rainey will ask for things because she thinks she's deserves them. Levy doesn't deserve anything, but asks for things anyway.
Yeah.
And ultimately that's what gets him in like a whole lot of trouble. And it gets him in trouble because he sort of puts it on himself.
Yeah.
He tries to move too fast, and it doesn't work for him.
Yep. So ambition can be a bad thing.
Yeah. Just ask Wale.
Yeah, exactly. And then the last key theme we have here is stubbornness. And I didn't really couldn't figure out a different word for this, but basically what I was referring to is Ma Rainey's stubbornness in her pursuit of like protecting her people as well as protecting her music. She's unrelenting in anyone else's suggestions about what she wants and what she thinks is best for her, essentially. And she is so stubborn that she won't even necessarily listen to what other people have to say. And I thought that was an interesting... It was certainly irritating at first because I thought, wow, this person is not even willing to listen to like the other person's perspective. And I just thought that was like closed-minded. But then the more I thought about it and the more we find out about her and her character, it's like, well, she's sort of... she's a product of her environment where she has to be this way. Otherwise she will let people walk all over her. So she's really like, it's really kind of a benefit in a way. She's really letting herself and her personality and her artistry kind of shine through by being this like almost combative.
Yeah.
And Levy is very similar in the same way, but to like a more detrimental effect, I think, in the end, obviously. But they're very similar in their stubbornness and, you know, what they want. They know exactly what they want, and they're not willing to, like, negotiate or
Compromise.
Compromise, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
like, they're talking about playing the song Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, and they want to, initially, the white folks want to do Levy's arrangement of it, which is faster, dancier. And she says, no, we're not doing that. We're doing my way.
Yeah.
And we're doing it my way so that you can pay my nephew $25.
Right.
And then later she won't perform because she doesn't have a Coca-Cola in front of her. Or like she won't perform because her car is not fixed.
Right.
Or there's like things that aren't taken care of the way she demands them to be taken care of. And she won't do her job without it.
Yeah. And I think it ties into like the race relations. Like, you know, Ma Rainey is this way because she's familiar with the music business. She's familiar how these things work, and she doesn't necessarily need it. You know, certainly I'm sure she would like the money, but she's willing to walk out if she doesn't get her Coke, right? Like, she is not willing to put up with these white people who, you know, she may think, you know, put her in this box or demean her in certain ways and don't respect her opinion. Whereas the same thing with Levy, you know, he has this moment where he's everybody's talking about how he's talking to Mel, right? Everybody's making fun of him for like sucking up to the white man. I can't remember the phrase they used, but he has his monologue where he describes he knows all about the white man. He is this way because of that. So it's sort of like a defense mechanism in a way.
Yeah, was it like
stubbornness,
fooling with white men, or like afraid of them in a certain like,
yeah,
that's not quite the right word, but yeah. I think when Ma's talking about the blues, I think she gives a little insight into what you're talking about, right? She knows that all they want from her is her voice, and she's willing to provide that as long as they are going to provide like the same kind of trappings they would give to someone else with a voice like hers.
Yeah.
Or who can move things like she can move things. She's like very clear with like, I have sold more records than the rest of the people that come through the studio combined.
Right.
So if they're going to buy me a 5-cent Coke, then like, what am I doing here?
Right. Exactly.
So yeah, I think it is stubbornness, and it's also just like a sort of like protective layer that's been hardened into her from just like living in 1920s America.
Yeah. I just thought it was because when I was reading and watching, I was like, why is she this like irritable, and why is she this combative? And as it goes on, you find out more about her and think more about it. It's like, okay, well, she's probably this way because of her environment.
Yeah,
but
she is very hard edged. Like her environment. I want to be a part of my environment. I want my environment to be a part of me. I think I did that quote wrong, but that's okay.
That's okay. I got it. So, what were some parts of the play that you were excited to see adapted into the movie?
So we've talked about this on the podcast before, but Will, you and I were in a history of jazz class once upon a time. When we
try to forget.
Yeah, as part of that class, one of the primary texts was this Ken Burns documentary, Jazz. I don't know if you remember watching that.
I don't. I mean, I don't really remember much except for him like.
Yeah, you just like it's blacked out of your mind.
Berating all the white people in the class.
Yeah, as you should, because that was a lot.
Yeah.
But we watched that documentary, and I recently rediscovered it on PBS. Like it's airing right now.
Okay.
And I've been recording the episodes, and I've been watching them, and that factors into this because this is a movie about blues music and just like music generally in the 20s. And I was pretty excited to see music, like this kind of music specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say that it wasn't like as music driven as I was maybe thinking it might be. It's more abstract conversations about what the blues mean and how they are like warping her and the blues like ideal kind of thing. But that was the first thing I was like, oh man, I'm ready for some like jazzy bluesy movie.
Mm-hmm.
2, just Chadwick, last role.
Yeah.
Obviously reading the text first, it's a showy role.
Yep.
So that's going to be exciting. And then 3, I was curious about how they were going to do the sort of racial divide between the execs and the performers, and if they were going to broaden it, make any allusions to like more present day America. Like there's a tendency, I think, in some of these stories to like draw very clear parallels between this play is set in 1927, but we're going to do like a wink wink to Trump.
Yeah.
And you're going to get it.
Right.
And I was interested to see how they were going to do that, because I think there are some movies that do that and there are some that don't.
Right.
And I don't think this one does. Like it feels very much like a in and of its time, and you almost don't even need to say that like shit is still like this.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
It almost goes unsaid. It doesn't need to be said.
No, I think you're right. And I don't think it does it. And if it does do it, it does it very subtly and not obvious. Yeah. So I was, apart from I was like all the things that you mentioned, I was excited about the music, like you said. I kind of wish we had gotten a little more, but I was happy with what we got. I mean, it was all really good.
Yeah, not a lot though.
Yeah, and certainly excited for the performances. As I was reading, like you said, it's a very showy role, and I didn't know much about the story beforehand. I didn't know like what the plot points were or anything like that. So I was actually kind of surprised about how combative everybody was towards each other, kind of. So I was really interested in seeing that dynamic between Viola Davis and Chadwick Boseman. So that was really cool to see, and then I was interested to see how the movie expanded on the script. Like you only have 95 pages or whatever of play material, and you only have 2 settings. I imagine there's going to be some more thrown in there, and they did add some, I guess like a handful of things.
Yeah,
but it was mainly those 2 settings. But I was really excited to see like what else they told. Like what else can you guys give me from the story that I hadn't gotten from the play? So
I like that. Yeah, it's pretty limited, right? So when you have a movie camera, you can do some more stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then why do we think this was adapted into a movie?
All of my answers for these are like, well, Fences was pretty successful, so they had to do the second one. But I think it's more than that. Like I think there's historically been a dearth of like black led and black told stories in Hollywood. And if and when we produce more of those, like I think August Wilson's playography is a pretty good place to start. From what we've read and what I've like read about him, he's a pretty successful teller of the Black experience, and he's modern. So I think, you know, being a modern playwright is helpful to translate to today.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want like more Shakespeare. I mean, there was obviously no playwrights in 1490 or whatever, whenever he was around, the 1300s.
You don't know when Shakespeare was alive?
No. When was he alive? Do you know?
I don't fucking know. No, I think it was like the 1500s.
Yeah, okay.
But so there's that, and I think that also there's some themes in this book that we've talked about that just go beyond like race. And I think that is, it makes a fuller story, right? It's not just about black and white. It's about all these other things.
So, like, comparing it to Fences, do you think this was a more watchable movie?
I think this movie was actually fairly watchable. I do. Fences, and this, I mean, they are. That's a good question. I'd have to go back and revisit Fences, but I do remember that Fences was in moments harder to watch because it was like a father-son, like parent-child relationship, and this is mostly just like people jarring at each other. And I think the personalness of Fences made it a little bit more difficult.
Excuse me, I just semi-burped and hit my mic.
Unbelievable.
So I was trying to cover my mouth. What'd you say?
Unbelievable. You missed my whole good talk about Fences.
I know.
Cleaning up, William Shakespeare, born sometime in the mid 1500s, died 1616. So there you go.
He has the greatest initials in the game.
WS.
You know what I'm saying?
Great first name.
Yeah.
What about you? Is there anything in here, like reason for why you might want to adapt this?
For all the reasons that you stated, I think if Fences had not been as popular, I don't think this probably gets made. Maybe it does.
Wait, so answer your own question. Do you think, like, watchability?
I think it's infinitely more watchable than Fences.
Ma Rainey,
I really had a hard time getting through Fences. Just, I mean, it's also 2 hours and 20 minutes. And, I mean, there's a lot going on. It's very heavy material. But I just thought it was super slow, that movie. I have my own thoughts about it, but I really enjoyed this one a lot more than that one.
Yeah.
So I just want to get your perspective on it.
If you want to hear our thoughts, you should go back in the catalog and maybe find the episode.
Yeah, find that one. But yeah, other than what you said for why this should be adapted, I think all the reasons you mentioned, and everybody likes, I mean, maybe it's been more recent, but with like La La Land and stuff, like people are becoming more, I think maybe are becoming more receptive towards like musicals. Although this wasn't really a musical, certainly more receptive to music and film. Maybe this is totally like, I'm just like blaming this on La La Land, but there's like Chicago from the mid 2000s.
That was like 2003, man.
Great year.
Is that the only other musical you can think
really
of?
The only one I can think
La La Land,
because I usually just like, I don't see them. I'm not really interested in them. But.
Yeah, there was like The Greatest Showman a couple years ago. Yeah, there have been more.
Yeah, I'm sure there have.
Obviously, musicals were really popular in like the 50s, and they went out of style, and then maybe they're coming back into style.
Yeah,
I do think it's interesting. Like Ma Rainey is a real person, and she's not really well known.
No, Bessie Smith took all over.
She got market corrected by Bessie Smith. Bessie Smith became more famous.
Yeah.
But I think it is interesting to take a real person and provide her a little bit more fame.
Yeah.
Just by putting her on Netflix.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. She deserves it.
She's the mother of the blues.
Mother of the blues.
So she taught Bessie everything she knew.
Damn Bessie.
Yeah. So that's it.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I think that's it for the adaptation section.
All right, let's go to break.
Do you want to take us?
Yeah, we're gone.
Here is a word from my sponsor. Do you have an idea for an episode? Tell us what it is. Tweet at us, find us on Instagram, follow us for updates and general musings at Lit2Lens. And we're back. Thank you from that brief word from me.
Don't thank yourself, Will. It's not.
No, I mean,
it's not polite.
It's not polite?
Oh, is it?
Think myself.
I don't think
I guess
so.
it's egotistical.
Yeah.
Sorry. We got some jokes though that are gonna make you laugh. At least mine will.
Mine's not good, so maybe I'll start.
Okay, let's go.
Why does Levy's grandpappy sit on the back porch with a straight razor while his grandma hung out the wash?
I have no idea.
To make sure she does it right.
I don't get it.
I mean, I don't understand why he was sitting on the back porch with a straight razor. Like, do you remember Levy says this?
Yeah.
Where he's like, now I finally understand why my grandpappy did this.
Yeah.
Do you understand? Because I don't.
I don't think I do.
So there's this scene where he's talking to Dusty, and he's like, shoot, you're so hot. Like, now I get why my granddad's out on the back porch with a straight razor while his wife folded laundry.
I still don't get it.
I don't get it either.
Oh, that's the joke that you don't get it.
Yeah, but my joke was that like he was gonna make her
Kill her?
Yeah, if she didn't do it right. Yeah, that was my joke. But the problem is I don't understand why he would have that with
You're gonna
him.
joke about murdering someone?
That's really the only thing to joke about anymore. Now that our country has fallen into such
I
disrepair.
I actually forgot about. I must have just breezed over that part.
Yeah, because I can't think of any reason why it would be like funny that he would have that. Like, what is he doing with it? I don't know.
Or kill himself? Maybe?
Someone write in.
Yeah,
and explain this,
please. We'll get August Wilson on.
So
he's still alive, right?
He's not. I think he died in like 2005.
We'll get somebody else.
So okay, well,
can I tell my joke now?
My joke was a fail, so you go ahead.
What happens when the pressure gets to be too much from a hurricane of emotions?
I do not know.
The levee breaks.
Wow. I should have waited a bit more for the laughter.
That's like one of my best jokes.
No, that was good. Yeah.
That took me so long to like write it out.
It works on multiple levels. So
get it? Because like Hurricane Katrina, the levees broke.
I get it.
But also his emotions broke.
See, this is now you're doing a me where like it's a good joke and then you explain it and then it makes it bad.
God damn it. I'll just cut that part out.
So cut that part out.
All right, let's talk about the movie. Did we like it? Yay or nay?
Yay. I like this quite a bit.
Yeah. Me too.
I totally agree with what you said right before break, which was that one of the reasons to adapt a play is to move the camera around.
Yep.
And show different things, explore more than the stage allows you to explore. And I think the movie was willing to do that, which I liked. And I think in doing so, it made things more real, like showing the car accident we talked about in the street versus just like them coming up to the stage to talk about it. As well, they move the camera to like further some of the themes, like in the play. Levy is trying to open this like random door in the studio. Yeah, he's like, this door wasn't here before. I wonder what's behind it. And that's the only mention of it. And in the movie, they're like, they made that a thing. They're like, every time Levy's in there, he's going to try to open this door. And then he finally does. And it's just like this totally opened, but like closed off brick, random outdoor room that leads to nothing.
Yeah.
And it's a metaphor that, not all open doors lead somewhere. So I did like that they were like expanded on some stuff. Yeah. Like he saw that door and was like, you know what? He should try to open it and find that there's nothing behind it.
Right.
So
there's no escape.
Yeah. Performances obviously are what are going to get the most shine.
For sure.
And they were pretty magical.
Yeah. Pretty great.
I don't know. It was a good play, and I think the movie translates the play and adds to it. And I think it makes it just a little bit better. Yeah.
I mean, it certainly doesn't leave anything major out from the play. All of the major points are hit, and even a lot of the smaller ones. It's pretty, I mean, this is our next question, but it's pretty literal, right?
I would say it's very literal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we can get into the differences in a second, but it's literal in a way that is very approachable, and it's very much like we've described this as a play about race and religion and money, and it's like not didactic, it's not dense, it's like very human, and the characters are really good, and it just really is watchable.
Describe that some more. Like it's didactic and it's
like human. Well, didactic is in like, it could be teaching you that like you shouldn't be acting like this white person, right? Like here's here are our feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like a, not a good way to describe that at all, but
I get what you're saying.
yeah, it's entertainment, but it also feeds you your vegetables. Like if you're paying attention well
that's
enough.
A good way. Yeah, that's a better way to describe it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're eating broccoli, but
like
you're
broccoli.
also like, it's good and you like it and it's entertaining and it's valuable as art and it's valuable as like social commentary.
Do you know what is the worst vegetable, Eric? Would you like to know?
I would. I'm trying to think of what you might say.
You can guess my answer if you like.
I feel like you're not a big pea guy.
Incorrect. Big pea guy. My least favorite vegetable is lima beans.
Like cousin to a pea.
Yeah, but they're
Grittier.
they're grittier, they're chewier, they're bigger, and they have this like weird skin texture that's not for me.
I'm glad to know that.
So, FYI.
No lima beans
Yeah.
in the studio. All right.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll leave them in the trash where they belong.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, I would definitely agree. It's very literal, reimagining, I guess you could say, of the source material. They certainly added to it, and the stuff that they added, I really liked. We can get into some of the differences.
Let's talk about them.
You want to do it? So the first scene, actually, the first shot is of the woods at night, and you see people kind of running in the background
From like a barking, like a nasty bark.
Yeah, and at first you're like, oh god, this is like
oh no, Roxy's coming for me.
yeah, she's gonna kill you. And first times you get like, oh, this is like slave times. But then as it pans and moves on, you realize, okay, we're moving towards like a tent or like an outdoor event here, and we find out it's Ma Rainey's like performance in the South.
Yeah.
And then we get this really cool scene where she's performing, and it's like a tented venue.
Yeah, it's a tent show.
A tent show with like other performers around her and stuff, and then we're transported from that. This is a difference. So this did not appear in the play, and then it transports that to Chicago, and they have these little kind of like news clipping shots where people are still, but they're not still. They're like small movement, but it's like newspaper text over top of the image, and then we're taken to Chicago, where she's performing at a big stage, and she has all these backup dancers shaking their black bottoms, and the whole band is there, and you see Levy and kind of looking at her girl, Dusty May, and they're like smiling at each other and stuff, and then he actually runs up to the front of the stage and does his own kind of solo.
Yep.
And everybody's kind of giving him this eye, like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
And then that is the first sort of conflict. That's the first source of tension that we're introduced to, which I thought was interesting to do. As opposed to the play, we're not introduced to that towards way later, because Maud actually doesn't really show up, I believe, until, was it Act 2? Or no, it was towards the end of Act 1 maybe that she showed up. So there's a big portion of the beginning of the film where she's just not even there. She's just referred to, and she's like the first thing that pops up in the movie. I just want to get maybe what your thoughts are. Did you like that? Did you dislike that?
It's interesting that you flagged this. I mean, I think that to start at the beginning with the tent show, like, I think they obviously were setting one expectation and flipped it on its head and say, like, these are actually people coming into a really popular show. And I think there's a lot made about tent shows in the play. They're a Southern thing. They are a like specifically like Black run and like patronized thing, right? Like Black people are supporting Black artists who are playing in these tent shows,
right?
And it is compared to like Ma in Chicago, where she doesn't quite have the same following. She's newer, and she's not as famous. So I think the tent scene specifically is showing that. You're like showing her in her element, and you sort of understand the like magnetism of Ma Rainey.
Yeah, like where she comes from, and what her background is, and she wasn't just born this performer in Chicago. Yeah,
but it is literalizing her abilities, just like the Chicago performance is literalizing her performing with her band now. Like, because before she doesn't really have a band behind her. Maybe she does.
I think she does. I'm not sure if it's the same people or not.
Yeah. And in Chicago, it's our like it's our main guys. And yeah, I think it very clearly spells out the conflict between her and Levy. And it's interesting on the one hand, because like you get why they do that, because it's just very clear, and you get to show Ma as like a talent.
Right.
But on the other hand, I don't know, like the play doesn't do that. And I don't know that you necessarily need to show Ma like that, because you do get her like that later. Like she does perform in the studio, and it's not as exciting because it's not in a live setting. So I don't know. I don't exactly know how to feel.
Yeah.
I like the live nature of it, because I do think for what they're trying to do, it's helpful to see her in front of a couple of different crowds to get a sense of like her fame and how that fame might be different in, I don't know where they are initially, like in the South somewhere.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Versus in the North.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly have sort of mixed feelings about it, because I like it. I think it was entertaining. But on the other hand, I think it can also set like unrealistic expectations for the viewer, because they may never heard of this movie. They thought, oh, this is like a blues movie, right? And then you get these two opening performances and you're like, okay, this is going to be like a performance movie, like lots of performances throughout and like lots of music, and that's just not really what you get later on. So on one hand, I like it because it gives more backstory, and it gives like sort of a sense of like what it was like in the 1920s, performances from in urban Chicago as well as like the Deep South, and you get that dichotomy and that contrast. But for me, it was sort of out of place, because it wasn't. I mean, although it's referred to somewhat in the screen or the play, excuse me, it's sort of, I don't know. It felt rushed, and it was sort of like. I was sort of like, oh, is this what this movie's going to be? Is this going to be a totally different movie?
Yeah, and the rest of it takes place in 2 rooms.
Right. So, I mean, I certainly, looking back, it's like I don't hate it, but I could see where some audience members would be like confused or like sort of thrown off as a movie goes on. It's like, oh, this is not really what I was expecting.
Yeah. I guess the big question for me is that, like, do we need to show Ma Rainey as her like top self?
Yeah.
Or not? And I don't exactly know. I like seeing her like that, and I'm just re-saying what I've already said, but I don't know that it's necessarily needed.
Yeah, I mean, I guess at some level you have to show that she is a star, right? You have to show that she is like well loved, and she's not just like some random person who's trying to become a musician or a singer. She's like a well-known commodity.
Yes, but to the audience, she's not. So that's maybe why it's helpful, because she's not Bessie Smith.
Right.
She's not like any of these other.
So maybe you do need to show that, no, she did have an audience. She was like a heavy hitter back in the 20s or whatever. Yeah.
In her home areas.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, yes. I'm in.
You're in on this. Okay.
Check mark. Put a check mark next to that.
And then, so moving on from that difference, we are introduced to Ma Rainey later on, after we're introduced to the musicians again, as she's walking through this hotel. It's sort of like an Airbnb, or not Airbnb, but like a B&B.
It's not like an Airbnb at all.
And she's walking through this hotel, she's walking down the stairs, and she's getting lots of stares. And first it's stares of all black people, all colored people who are looking at her, but they're all dressed up, they're all nice. They're all eating breakfast, I assume, in the dining room, and everybody's like dressed up to the nines, kind of like almost like they're going to church or something.
Well, they're not like you wearing your Uniqlo. They wear like
nice stuff.
Yeah.
Well,
it's the Uniqlo of 1927. That's what they're wearing.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
And so everybody's giving them weird looks, like these odd, like blankless stares. And it was odd to me, because it almost reminded me of like a horror movie where like everybody looks. And nobody was like giving any sort of emotion or like any sort of like social cues, like, oh, that's, psst, that's Ma Rainey. Like nobody was doing that. It was just sort of like they're all just looking at her. So I wasn't sure if that was meant to portray like, oh, she's famous, or meant to portray like, like, oh, that's Ma Rainey, or it was supposed to be like, oh, who's this like black woman?
I think the second. I think it's supposed to show, because they show black people and white people with the same blank stares.
Yes.
So I do think it's meant to show that nobody knows who Ma Rainey is. This is now Chicago, which is so to bring it back to that like the second initial performance in the crowd, like if that was in Chicago and she was popular, and then now we're in Chicago still and she's unknown, maybe that's a little like mismatch in a certain sense. But I think the point they're trying to say is that like she's not known in Chicago.
Okay.
Yet.
Right. So she's like a new commodity.
Yeah. So she still has incentive to, because we've talked about like Ma not recording until she's given a Coke and all these things are met, but she has incentive to record because she still has audience to gain.
Yeah.
In these northern states where they don't know her as well.
Okay. I think I see what you're, okay. I see what you're saying. And that does make sense where but
also she's like a very big woman. She's wearing like
lots of makeup,
crazy makeup.
Yeah.
She's got like a big fur scarf on.
Yeah.
Like
so
she looks like, I don't know if she looks famous, but she stands out. Like her appearance stands out.
True. Yeah. Even with everyone else who is like kind of dressed to the nines.
Yeah.
She's like a level above that, or maybe two.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just thought that was interesting. It sort of like kind of threw me off at first, but I think you're right. I think that's what they were going for.
Yeah, because there's between the tent show and the Chicago show, they have those like the interstitial newspaper clippings that talk about the Great Migration, which is just when groups of black folks like moved from the South to Chicago, to these other northern cities. Yeah, so I think it's maybe like a new crowd of people that she doesn't know.
Yeah.
That have recently moved there or are continually moving there.
And she maybe doesn't even fit in with the black people that live there.
Yeah, because she's Southern.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So and then so I wanted to talk about Dusty for a few minutes because we were talking about this before we started recording, but I read her character when I was reading the play as Ma Rainey's daughter. And when the scene came where she was performing in front of the mic when they just got to the studio, and then Ma Rainey kind of comes in behind her real like sensually and like kind of kissing her neck and whispering to her, I was like completely thrown off. I was like, what the fuck is going on? And then you eloquently explained to me that no, it's not her daughter. It's like her girl.
Yeah. So you read it as like, this is my girl Dusty and this is my nephew Sylvester. And you're like, okay, my girl, my daughter.
My daughter. That's
my
how
nephew.
I read it.
Yeah.
So totally incorrect reading from my point, but I thought it was funny that was my reaction to it.
That's funny. I watched this movie first and then I read the play and then I watched the movie again.
Okay.
So maybe just because I saw the movie first, sorry, I knew she wasn't a daughter.
I'd have to read it again because maybe I just missed something.
You missed the cues.
Yeah, I missed the cues. But yeah, I thought that was really weird. But you're introduced to Dusty in a different way than the play. She's a lot more like sensual and like she's a lot more like confident might be the wrong word, but she's like performing, she's dancing in front of the mic and she's like pseudo performing in front of Ma Rainey as well as other musicians later on.
Well, she's on the stage initially, right?
That's true. Or she's off stage.
She's off stage, but she's dancing and
she's dancing around. And...
Levy's looking at her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I do think they try to draw a parallel between her and Levy because one of the first things she says to Ma Rainey is like, "I need new shoes. My shoes are really tight." And Levy like comes busting in his own entrance into the story with like having just bought new shoes.
Check out my new shoes.
So
$11.
Yeah. Fully expansion. So in some senses, like they sort of have this like related need or want.
Yeah.
And that kind of bonds them. But I think you're right. Like Dusty is just around to, I don't know, like
she certainly causes tension between Ma and Levy and then like everybody else basically, because everybody's trying to be like, yo, chill out, stop like hitting on Dusty. Dusty Ma's girl. So
yeah,
I think she's a source of tension.
Yeah, she might. I guess her and Sylvester sort of have the least to do in the plot, but she at least is showing like that the sound does work because she's like swaying her hips. She's dancing, and it shows that like at least she finds this music good enough to dance to.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like an affirmation to what Ma is saying.
Yeah.
But it's also Ma's person, right? So she's, of course, going to support Ma.
Yeah. And then let's tie a bow on Dusty before we move to the car crash. So in the play, Dusty and Levy certainly have this flirtation going, and he's talking about, oh, let me be your man and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, well, she's like kind of playing along with it, but also telling him off at the same time. And I think they may kiss.
I think they do kiss. I think it's a very forceful kiss.
Yeah. And then, so they do that in the movie as well, but they continue to kiss, and then it escalates into them having sex in the rehearsal room.
Yeah.
And then not Toledo, but Slow Drag kind of knocks on the door like, hey, the door's locked, like, hey, we're like ready for you.
Ma got a cokes.
Yeah, Ma got a cokes, are ready to go. So that was an interesting difference. They sort of like dialed that up a lot. And I don't really think they needed to necessarily, because there was already that tension between them. But it certainly dials it up to another degree that's like, okay, this guy's like really fucking up with Ma Rainey.
Yeah, I think it underscores too some of his like impulsive tendencies where he's like, I'm going to take Ma's girl and we're going to have sex in the other room. Yeah. No one's going to come in. Don't worry about it. Let's just like...
Right. Even though we're supposed to be recording right now.
Yeah. Let's just do it. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
What I actually thought was interesting about this was that it felt a lot more consensual than it did in the play. Like in the play, I really read it as he like grabs her, turns her, like lays one on her.
Yeah.
And is like, yeah.
Well,
and now like with the sex and all that, it's longer, so you could, I don't know,
it's more consensual later on, like as it progresses.
Yeah, like he definitely comes onto her, and then she doesn't relent, and she like kind of is into it.
Yeah, I mean they kiss.
I mean they've been making eyes at each other for like the whole movie, and then
not to say it's non-consensual, by any means, but yeah, no, I know what you mean. But in the movie, they kiss on the piano chair. Yeah. But then he also forcibly kisses her later. Like as she's trying to leave, he kind of like grabs her in the movie and forcibly kisses, and then they sort of like continue. But I didn't really get that vibe, but I think you're right. It was, you almost knock over your water.
So you get for putting it on the
ground. You talk about sex and Eric gets all flustered.
Yeah, my red rooster starts to crow.
What a great line that is, by the way.
Yeah, my note to this, I saw you put this in the differences, and my note was just like, let the damn rooster crow.
Yeah.
That's it.
Let him crow.
So, but I do think it's more of an impulse thing. Like he cares nothing for the reaction to his actions.
Yeah. He'll just think he'll get away with it, or he just wants to do it.
So. If he wants it, he's going to do it, and that's it. And I think it's just like it's a boulder that continues to like roll down the hill.
Yeah.
And this just helps it pick up steam.
So let's move on from Dusty and talk about the car crash. So there's a difference here as well, where we're actually told about the car crash in the studio, when we're reading the play, by Sylvester, Dusty,
the policeman,
and Ma Rainey. They're all in the studio. But we're actually introduced. We see them driving. We don't witness the crash, but we see the aftermath in the middle of the street, and the policeman. Everybody's out there, and Irv comes out. The difference is Irv and Mel come outside to talk to the policeman and pay him off. So what do you think is the benefit of having the scene adjusted?
I think it makes it more real. I think in that time, like there's no way they would let her leave the scene of that accident.
Right.
And so it just is like, yeah, they probably didn't come up to the studio and then talk about it in the studio. They probably had this out in the street.
Right.
But like I said before, I do think it's just a way to paint the black and white divide beyond the walls of the studio, because there's definitely a power imbalance in the studio, but you have to remember that like beyond the walls it is in a lot of ways like worse. Like Irv does a lot of things for Ma that are sort of like, they're not ironic, but he sort of is flipped in a certain sense.
Yeah,
like if you think about what 1920s America is,
yeah,
like Irv is very doting on her,
yeah,
but outside of the record studio is not like that at all.
Right. And when I was reading it, I didn't get the sense. I was kind of like, oh, this policeman's like kind of being really nice, like especially for the 1920s against black people. It's like he's allowing her, leaving the scene of a crime and allowing her to like go to her place because she's like somebody important and famous. And
Says her.
Yeah, says her, like, wow, that's actually, like, I feel like it would go a lot worse. So I think you're right. It is a lot more realistic that they have it like this. I don't think a policeman would just allow her to, like, leave and go to a recording studio in the 20s. But, that's probably...
Who's got the car in the play? All
thing.
3 of the people in the car are gone. Plus the policeman.
Yeah, that's true. And you probably do need to verify that it's her car, just like registration and stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
But
I guess that would happen for any accident, right?
Yeah.
License and registration.
And I don't know if they had registration in the 20s, but that's one for our researcher to figure out.
Yeah. I imagine cars were probably pretty new by 1927.
Yeah.
Ish.
So I don't know how they verified it back then. But anyways, moot point. But
she wrote Ma fucking Rainey on her license plate.
Yeah, that's what she did.
That's how you know.
And then it also adds a little bit of, like, the racial tension. So there's lots of white people around kind of looking skeptically at Ma Rainey as well as to, like, what's going on. And she's kind of like, she's being herself. She's being, like, loud and, like, defending herself.
That's
and,
true.
like,
Yeah, she's being very real.
Like, letting these people, like, take advantage of her in any way. So we get more of that.
That's a good point. Yeah, it is a pretty big character building moment. Like, someone else in this scenario might, like, acquiesce to what the cop is saying, and she's like, no, fuck you. I didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
So I'm not going to be in trouble for this. And also I'm famous.
Right. Throw the famous card in there.
Yeah.
No, you're right. And then a very similar scene in terms of, like, the tertiary racism towards, like, groups of white people that are hanging out outside. When Ma doesn't get her Cokes, she threatens to leave, and then she has Slow Drag and Sylvester go get her some. So they walk into the deli or whatever, and they walk in, they open the door, and there's, like, 12, like, white people, like, workers probably, like, construction people, I don't know.
Yeah.
And they're all just, like, staring at him, giving this look like, you don't belong here, essentially.
Yeah.
And I think Toledo kind of, like, he doesn't really chuckle, but he's sort of like, okay, we got to go somewhere else kind of thing. And they leave. So that was another scene that was added. And I think it's pretty straightforward as to, like, what they were trying to do there.
Yeah, I think that's just, like, another reminder that your world inside the studio is not the world outside.
Right.
Which I think the play tries to... The play's not outward with that, but, like, it exists, so you might as well... There's no harm in adding that element to the story.
Yeah, just a little subtle reminder that, like...
Yeah.
And then one more big difference was the last scene in the movie where a group of white musicians, there's a lot of them, there's almost like 15 of them or something, they're performing a song called Jelly Roll, which is referred to earlier in the play and in the story by I believe it's Levy, right?
Yeah.
And I believe it's his song that he wrote. So basically before, spoiler alert, if we probably should have mentioned that earlier, but
it's too late now.
Yeah. So Levy basically...
Well, we really haven't spoiled anything yet, so I think we're actually...
I'm about to. And so Levy basically goes to Mel towards the end of the movie and is like, hey, you told me, like, you wanted me to, like, write you some songs. Here are those songs. Like, I want to perform them for you and stuff. He's like, oh, no, I just, like, I want the songs. Like, I'll pay you $5 for them. I don't need you to perform them. And he's really upset because he thought he was going to be able to get his own band together and perform them and perform these songs that he wrote and then become famous, essentially. So his plan is totally ruined. And then stuff happens later where he ends up killing Toledo. And then that's the end of the play. What
do you mean stuff happens? The man steps on his shoes and he loses his mind.
He said, excuse me.
Yeah.
So, and then he loses his mind and kills him.
Yeah, you're right. So he gets rejected by Mel and then, like, breaks, basically. And when Toledo steps on his shoes, he just, like...
He loses it.
He loses it.
Completely loses
stabs him, yeah.
And then I thought it was actually pretty realistic the way they did that, where he realizes what he did right after he does it. And, like, he's, like, very apologetic and, like, but also still angry at the same time. I thought it was a really good... They did the same in the play as well. He had the same reaction. I thought it was a really good scene.
Yeah, Levy is somebody who, across the play, like, thinks something is coming to him. He thinks something is promised to him. And, I mean, there's allusions to, like, he talks all the time about making a deal with the devil and how he's not afraid of white people.
Right.
And he finally reaches this moment where he is supposed to have a deal. And the guy's like, actually, we don't like these songs. Yeah. I'm happy to just buy them from you, but I don't want you to play them. We don't think they're going to be any good.
Yeah.
And
this is not what we need right now, is what he says, I think.
Yeah.
Not what we're looking for.
And he wants that so much. That's the only thing he wants. And he doesn't get it. And it totally just...
That's like his like end goal. And so he basically burns all these bridges in the meantime with Ma and everybody else. Because he's like, I have this anyway.
Ultimately gets fired from the band.
He gets fired from the band and basically ruins his relationships with everybody.
Yeah.
And he's just like, because I don't really care because I'm going to get this thing anyway. I was promised this by Mel, and I'm going to become a star without you guys. And then that doesn't happen. And then he's like, fuck.
Yeah.
But to bring it back around, they basically steal the song from Levy. He pays for it.
Yep.
But he did promise that he was going to allow him to get a band and stuff. So he technically steals the song from, and it's performed by this white band.
Yeah, pretty terribly.
Pretty terrible. It's pretty it's pretty awful.
It has no emotion. I'm not a music critic, but like it was bad.
Yeah, it was very like.
And I think it was meant to be bad.
I think it was very vanilla.
Yeah,
is the best way to describe it.
Well, because they're all white. Yeah,
and then like the last scene is like where he like snaps his fingers like a blues player or whatever. Like very like stereotypically, and that's like the end scene. So what did you think of that? Did you like that addition to the movie? Did you dislike it? I
liked it quite a bit. So I don't know if you like specifically mentioned the end of the book is like there's a big trumpet sound. I think after he kills Toledo. So this is just sort of an extension of that, where rather than play him out with the horn, he gets played out with his own music that is maybe not good, but will ultimately like make a bunch of money and is sort of like terrible for him.
Yeah.
Like he I don't know. It's like the ultimate fuck you. And I think it underscores the deal with the devil a little bit harder, where it's just like you dance with the devil and you're going to have a white jazz band record your song really poorly. And they're probably going to make a bunch of money from it. Yeah. Because this is actually, the ironic thing is like, that is actually the sound they want.
Right. Because
And they can take it from him because he has no way to stop them. He
has no audience.
He has no audience. He literally killed a person, and so he's going to be taken away forever.
Well, that's true, yeah.
But like all of his power is totally drained.
He also wants it so bad. So this is another difference between him and Ma Rainey. He wants it so bad that he's willing to like give up these songs and write these songs for him, and just whereas Ma would not be willing to do that. She basically had them write this contract up, and then she'd even sign it till she like was about to leave. So she knew how to play the game against these people and get what she wanted out of it, with them basically like begging her to sign at the dotted line, whereas he doesn't know how to deal with them and is basically him, waiting on this promise, this verbal promise, not a non-contractual agreement, whatever.
Yeah, and I think they don't want what they don't know. I think there's a certain like IP point to this too. Like those are new songs by somebody that's unknown, whereas like Ma Rainey is singing, like she's the mother of the blues, so she's singing Ma Rainey songs and Bessie Smith songs.
Yeah.
So she's performing the very like the most well-known versions of some of these songs, whereas like he wants to write new stuff, and then he's like, there's no market for new stuff because nobody knows who you are,
right? And
if I can't sell you as you, then you're worthless to me,
right? Exactly.
And then he makes himself worthless to everybody and he's easy to steal from.
Yep. So what parts of the play, sorry, I'm at the wrong point. So the same key themes as August Wilson's play, do you think that those rang through to the movie?
I think so.
Race, definitely.
I'm looking back at the list here. Yeah, race, religion, money, ambition, stubbornness. I think so.
I think they're all just like dialed up probably a little bit.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
There was no new themes, I think, that were brought to maybe like the historical factor, with her background.
Yeah, more awareness of what Ma Rainey can do as a performer. Although that's not Viola Davis singing. It's, I think, someone else.
Yeah, it's somebody else, yeah. So would you say that this adaptation was successful?
I think so. I think it really was. I think it, like the opposite of Harry Potter last time, where it was like you translated a bad book into the exact same movie.
Right.
You translated a good play and added like good parts to it. So,
you know what?
Kudos for you.
Side note on that, I recently talked to somebody about Harry Potter 2, and she said that, wow, you read the worst one of the bunch.
There you go.
So you were confirmed.
I didn't need to be confirmed because I already knew that to be true. So,
Just wanted to throw that in there, so it's on the record.
I'm going to wave it away.
Okay, if you don't want it.
No, tell her thank you.
Yeah,
That, yeah.
But no, I agree. I think the adaptation was successful. It hit all the key points. It didn't stray too far away, and the stuff that it added, generally speaking, added to the story and didn't like detract from it and make it something totally different.
Yeah.
So
it made the world a little bit bigger and made the themes deeper.
A little better.
Yeah.
So, hot takes. Would you like to go first?
No, you go first.
So my hot take is that Ma Rainey is an asshole.
You don't even know her.
I do know her after reading about her and seeing her. She's a total asshole, but I think she is justified. But that doesn't make her not an asshole. Do you see my point?
Yes.
Okay.
I think that makes sense.
I think she's a justifiable asshole.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But she's rude to Irv and Mel, and she's rude to Levy. She's also rude to Cutler. Just when anybody like tries to maybe like add something or like change something, she just like is an asshole and it's like no. And like maybe that's the right reaction, but I was like, wow, Ma, like you're kind of an asshole.
Ma.
So that's my take.
All right.
What's yours?
I like it. Mine is that Levy is the perfect role for a young Denzel Washington.
Mm-hmm.
And it obviously Chadwick Boseman is great in the role, but it is almost like if this had happened in 1995, like is like literally perfect.
He would have won another one.
Yeah. Like he plays ambition so well. He plays like one-sided tenacity like perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think he would be really good at some of the smugness, some of the like style. He's got everything that Levy has, and obviously he produced his play. He produced Fences. He starred in Fences, so it's easy to make that comparison. But damn,
no, I think you're absolutely right.
Like I read this and I was like, this is a Denzel part.
Yeah, I mean, you basically take him in Training Day and move him into the 1920s.
Yeah,
like a total conniving, kind of scummy,
but with some swag.
Yeah,
with like oodles of talent.
Yeah,
like I feel like Denzel is always a very talented person.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's perfect.
Maybe he bought this play because he was like, I need to live vicariously through Chadwick, and
he's too old. I mean, he's way too old for it now.
Yeah, way too old. Yeah,
but
unfortunately. Okay,
yeah, that's
I like it. And then move your book. Or move your play in this instance. I chose the play. And this was actually kind of hard because I liked both a lot, but I gave the edge to the play because I usually don't like reading plays. So
there you go.
And I'm harder to impress by reading a play than I am with a movie. So
okay, I went movie for reasons that I liked the play, and I just think the movie was the play, but a little bit better.
Fair enough.
So
you're allowed to have that opinion.
Yeah.
So. And then some final thoughts. What will we remember from the play? I will remember the Levy's monologue about his father and his mother. I just thought that was like the most important part for me to get over how crazy Levy was. Like it just like it justified his behavior for me. So I thought that was an important part. That I'll remember that.
Yeah, that's what I would have put had you not already put it here. I think that's going to be on. We talked about the Viola Davis sizzle reel. That's going to be on the Chadwick Boseman sizzle reel.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
You'll probably see that.
If you're not first, you're last.
What I added here was just like the Toledo wisdom.
Yeah,
I just liked Toledo. I liked he would throw in some stuff. It would be good.
It would be good. That I think his stuff made me think the most. It's like, what is he trying to say here?
Yeah. Yeah, I liked Cutler was kind of a little bit dull, although I liked the actor a lot. He was really good.
Yeah, he was good.
And I think Slow Drag was just a bit of a slow drag. So Toledo, my favorite city in Ohio, and also my favorite non-Levy character.
It's your favorite
character.
city in Ohio?
It's not.
Oh.
But
It should
spiritually, it's like a top 5 Ohio city.
Okay. And then, well, Ohio cities are not that great, so that's got to be like pretty low, like nationally. Because nobody let's go to
It's like
Cincinnati.
Cleveland, Cincinnati,
or Columbus.
Columbus.
Although Columbus is known for their architecture.
Yeah, I know you watched the movie.
Yeah.
But that's Columbus, Indiana, isn't it?
Is it?
Well,
I actually don't know.
we'll get our research to look at
I
this.
didn't know it was a Columbus, Indiana.
Yeah, so it's certainly a top 4 Ohio city.
Okay. Well, congratulations, Toledo.
So, Toledo.
Eric rated you pretty high.
Um,
And then what we remember from the movie, I said Ma Rainey's makeup because it is outrageous. And you really get a sense of it in like her Oscar sizzle scene where she's talking about the blues and what it means essentially. And it's just like, it's dolled up.
yeah. And too in the first tent performance where
Yes.
it's really hot and she's just like dripping.
Dripping sweat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And her makeup's running.
Mhm.
Yeah. What I answered for this was just that the white band playing a really terrible version of the Jelly Roll song at the very end.
I think that is like maybe like the most important part of the movie.
Bit of it like a chef's kiss at the end. Where
Yeah.
it's like, we hit our themes. Now we're going to show you this terrible version, bastardized by like grubby money people.
White people.
Yeah.
No, I agree. Cool. So that basically wraps it up for us today. Thank you for listening. We're going to sign off here. But before we do, check out our most recent episode on Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, the worst book and movie in the series, according to Eric, but a very good podcast that you should listen to.
That's right. As I said, there are bad books, but there are no bad episodes.
That's exactly right. And keep an eye out for our next episode, which is going to be on what, Eric?
Nomadland, starring Frances McDormand, coming to Hulu on February 19th.
So we are going to plan to watch it when it comes out and then hopefully record that weekend. So if you want to read along and watch along, be sure to do that. It's in 2 weeks from today, or almost 2 weeks from today.
On Hulu.
On Hulu.
$4.99
Yeah, I mean,
a month.
Yeah, so just steal like your parents or your friends.
I don't think anybody has Hulu.
I have Hulu.
Oh, I have Hulu too.
Fuck. I feel like Hulu is probably one of the least, like, has the least amount of accounts according, like, do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. Least amount of accounts. According to
compared to
the world.
like Netflix and
yeah.
Prime and
I would think Netflix and Prime are probably the top 2. Then maybe Disney Plus. Then maybe HBO Max.
yeah.
And then like the Hulus and the Apples and the
Although Hulu is the cheapest.
yeah. There's Paramount Plus now. If you watched the Super Bowl last night.
Oh my god, dude. Nobody's gonna fucking get
There's
that
too many.
shit.
There's Discovery Plus, which is Food Network and HGTV. There's too many.
It needs to stop.
It does need to stop. I think at some point there's going to be a service where you like pay $40 a month and they're going to bundle.
They have to bundle them. I mean,
It's
they have
so
to.
stupid. We just unbundled cable and now we're going to rebundle cable. It's like literally stupid.
Thank you for your hot take.
So,
and then if you guys want to give us some ideas for future seasons, we haven't decided yet what we're going to do after the Oscars, but we've floated some ideas around about maybe doing a location-based season, maybe Los Angeles, Boston, New York City, maybe Paris. One of our buddies is going to Paris in the fall, so maybe we get him on the pod.
yeah.
Maybe Mr. Charles.
Do a video pod.
Fan favorites.
Or,
A video pod.
Shows us
A Zoom pod.
Yeah. He'll be allowed into Europe before any of us are allowed, probably.
Actually, yeah, definitely.
So.
Or maybe genre-based or TV series. Let us know. Where can they find us?
littleends@gmail.com for some either questions or ideas. Yeah. At littleends, both on Instagram and Twitter. Where else are we?
Blog.
Yeah.
Little Lens blog.
Littleends blog at
or .wordpress.com.
Yep.
So, and then any shout outs? Would you like to shout out anybody? Maybe Griffey or...
No shout outs this episode.
You're
I'm
going to shout out
gonna
Griff?
keep it in the holster.
Wait, you got to wait for the right time.
Yeah.
I'm also not going to shout out anybody.
There you go.
Because I don't deserve it. So,
Next time.
Thanks for listening.
Work better. Work harder.
Work better?
Work better. Oh, jeez.
Hopefully we'll be better next time. Thanks.